Hey, welcome. So I am going to show you, as you can see, I got a bowl full of chicken. I am going to show you how I do my meatballs, and I am going to introduce you to my secret ingredient of how I keep my chicken meatballs moist. So I've got 2 pounds of chicken here. As you can see, I've got all of my ingredients. And let's get started putting this together. And in the process, I'll tell you what my secret ingredients is. So let's zoom down into my bowl and let's get started. So let's get started by adding our spices. I am going to add a tablespoon of chili powder, and I am going to add a tablespoon of sage. Here I've got some herb seasoning. Of course, we're going to add some black pepper. I have got some, it's probably about a tablespoon and a half of crushed garlic. And I am going to add hopefully this is going to come out for me, a tablespoon of Better Than chicken seasoning, the stock. So we're going to add that in there. And we are going to add, I've got here 1 whole onion and 1 whole bell pepper that I minced really well in the food processor because I want it nice and thin. And my secret ingredient that I am going to show you, I am going to add 1 whole apple that I minced up in the food processor. That will help to keep our meatballs moist. And I am going to add a cup of breadcrumbs. And let's add 1 egg. Now let's get this all mixed together. And I should tell you something about the chicken that I'm using. So I went to the local meat market, and I asked my butcher if he could ground my chicken and then season it as if he was seasoning sausage. So my chicken already has some seasoning in it, so it's been seasoned like it was sausage. So we're going to get this all incorporated into this meat really good, and then we'll roll our meatballs. Okay, so I've started rolling some of my chicken meatballs. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you that I just sprayed my hands with a little oil, and this will help to keep the meatballs from sticking to my hand. I am just going to pinch a little off and roll it up and drop it on our cookie sheet. And I have a piece of parchment paper on our cookie sheet because I'm going to bake them for about 15 minutes in the cookie sheet, and I don't want to ruin my cookie sheet, so I plopped on a piece of parchment paper. So we don't want to roll our meatballs too big, and we don't want them too small. So I figure about the size so that when you're eating them, you can cut them with a fork. So we don't want them too small, and we don't want them too big. So this is about the size, and it's really easy to roll them. Just roll them around in your hand. And you see how the meat isn't really sticking to my hands, and that's because we sprayed them with the oil. And they don't have to be perfectly round. You just want to roll them so they have some shape, some kind of form. And yes, there are going to be all different sizes. So let's get the rest of these rolled up and let's put them in the oven. Okay, so let me ask you what you do with your fat when you cut off a chicken. What I normally do is I save it and put it in the freezer to use when you're making gravy or for chicken stock. So this is some fat that I've cut off of chicken earlier and froze it. So I am going to make my gravy, so I need a little fat. So I've got that chicken fat, and I am going to add to that 2 tablespoons of butter. So we're going to let this cook down just a minute, and then we're going to add a half of a sliced onion and get that going in here, because we just want to get it so that we can get our gravy going. We need to make our roux. So we're going to add some flour, and let's get that all mixed in there and get this going, get this brown. Let's turn up our heat a little bit. So how brown we make our flour depends on how brown our gravy is going to be. Let's add our onion. Now that we've got our onion in here, let's get it going. Now let's add a half a cup of chicken stock. And we're going to let this simmer up in here until we get our gravy mixture going. We might have to add just a little more chicken stock because we want it to. Okay, let's stir this up, and as it starts to simmer and you can see it's starting to thicken up, to make sure we don't have any lumps in our gravy, because there's nothing worse than lumpy gravy. And we're going to add our meatballs, and we are going to just let this simmer as the meatballs finish cooking. We're just going to let this. Now we cooking with gas. Okay. Let's make sure we get all our meatballs covered down into the gravy, and we're going to put this on low and just let it simmer for probably about 30 minutes. So here's our chicken, meatballs, and gravy. They're over a bed of mashed potatoes. So let's serve some up and see what it looks like. There we are. How about we cut into that meatball? Look how tender and still juicy. And here you have it, our chicken and meatballs and gravy. Hey, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button. Help me get to 1,000 subscribers. And remember, cook with the ones you love and love the ones you cook with.